until the mid-60s, the most common five-string banjo tuning was standard C, or just the C tuning, which is G, C, G, B, D. In the mid-60s, the popular open G tuning, G, D, G, B, D, and double C, G, C, G, C, D, became the norm. This is a look at those three tunings and how they compare and what the advantages and disadvantages of each are. The difference, if you were to play everything in standard C, is that the first string has dropped by 2 frets, and the difference from double C is the second string by 1 fret. So basically you could play anything in this tuning that you can play in either of those. With capos, open G you can play in G or D, and in the C tunings you can play in C or G. And with the capo, you can move up to the tunings, the keys that are shown here. And so the only retuning you would do would be to use your spikes on your 5th string to change your drone. Here we see open G tuning, where we have the fret intervals for playing in G and for playing in C, in standard C and double C. And you can see the differences. We can also play in D in open G just by changing the 5th string from G to A for a dominant drone. And we capo at the 2nd fret. You can notice the fret markers here moved. And the patterns are the same, which is why instead of putting note names, I used interval numbers. The most common modes that we play for banjos, especially old-time or folk, is major, Mixolydian, where the 7 gets flattened, Dorian, where there's a flat 7 and a flat 3, and Aeolian natural minor, where the 6 is also flattened. We can also play the major pentatonic, where there is no 4 or 7 interval, or the minor pentatonic, where there's no 2 or 6, and the 3 and 7 are flattened. You'll notice over here that as we change the tuning, it shows us these interval numbers, and here we see the diatonic chords. Uppercase Roman numerals are major, lowercase are minor, and if it has a degree symbol, it's diminished, and they shift with the tuning, or with the mode. So the 5th scale interval of playing in C is G. Playing in G, it's D. So you can match up the actual note names with these, looking at the scales. We can also look at and compare chords. So here for the C chord, C major, you see the familiar shape in open G. In standard C, it becomes a 2-finger chord because the E's drop down, but the C at the nut gives you the C, E, G, so it's a 2-finger chord. In double G, it's a 1-finger chord. You'll notice over here that the spelling is C-E-G, and the sharp and flat lines are the same. If we go to the 4th interval of C, that would be F. You'll notice that the F is the familiar F shape, which for some people it's difficult to play as a 4-finger chord, and they might just not play that 4th string. But in standard C, it's a 3-finger chord, and it's correct, F-A-C. For double C, we have another shape. It's a 2-finger chord rather than a 3-finger chord. And we have a complete F-A-C, F-A-C. The G would be the 5th in a C, in plain in C, and it would be the tonic plain in G. It's a bar chord in open G, and here the F shape is dropped down and then the D shape is dropped down further. These movable shapes are familiar to anybody that plays in open G tuning. In standard C, since strings 1, 2, and 3 are the same as open G, for those 3 strings, the chord shapes are the same. There's nothing new to learn. And you can either not play the 4th string, or you might, for some chords, have it be a good 3-finger chord. For double C, we have a 2-finger chord, but G is G, B, D, and all we have here is G and D. It's a 5 chord. The 3rd interval is missing. We can make these minor, or actually any of these. But let's go back here. One of the things that the double C does have for complete chords is moving up and down the neck, where strings 4, 3, and 2 are a bar. And for major chords, the 1st string is 2 frets closer to the nut. And for minor, it's 1 string, 1 fret closer to the neck. And this works for all the way up to C, that was our 1-finger chord. D becomes the bar and a 1-fret minor or major. So this lets you play up the neck conveniently, but the first interval, the first position chords are not as complete as with open G or standard G tuning. The standard C, rather than a 3-string bar, we have a 2-string bar and 2-string bar here for either minor. Now in major, so it still resembles the first 3 strings of open G. If we can determine which chords diatonically should be if we were playing in major. If we were playing in D major, the 3 chord is an F sharp minor. So if we went to F sharp minor, we get our shape. You'll notice here that the spelling is F sharp A C sharp. In the scale of D, we've got an F sharp and a C sharp. So all of those are correct. If we were playing in G, F sharp A C sharp, playing in G, there is no C sharp. It's a D flat. And in C, there's no C sharp or F sharp. So on the fretboards, I used the notes that are appropriate for the scale, and you can use this legend here to see that instead of an F sharp, we have a G flat. They're the same thing. So that's our chords. If you wanted to play a D flat, you don't have one here, so you would have to change it from sharp chord roots. But when you do that, you'll notice that it says invalid, because now on the pull down there is no F sharp anymore. There's a G flat. It gives you you get the same shapes for the enharmonic chords, but they just have new names. And of course, the correctly spelled names can become kind of cumbersome with things like G flat, B flat, flat, etc. So anyway, I'll put a link to this Google sheet in a comment. But this is a comparison of the three tunings. And one more thing here. All of them have open strings in the scale that you're playing in, G and C. For Mixolydian, standard C, you lose one open string being part of the scale. For Dorian, you lose that same string 2, for being part of the scale. So this is basically open G is best for major modes. Double C gives you can use open strings for the scale you're playing in for both major and minor keys. So all of these things might determine which tuning you want to use for chord availability or the scales you want to play. And if you're in a jam session or something where you don't want to change tuning at all except perhaps the spike on your 5th string, standard C will work. And as I mentioned earlier, it was the most common up until the mid-60s. So that's your comparison of those three tunings.